Hello, this is Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I'm a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. That means I do brains, brain injuries, dementias, that kind of stuff, including ADHD. I'm also a parent, one of the two parents of two ADHD kids. And we started all this, our kids are older because of that, we did not know anything about ADHD, because ADHD wasn't even an official diagnosis until 1980. No, ADD wasn't even an official diagnosis until 1980, and ADHD was not an official diagnosis until 1987. So we had people who were highly trained in pediatric psychology evaluate our kids and didn't come up with a thing that was helpful. Nothing. So we had to wing it and kind of do our own research and so on. It was a struggle, and we made a lot of mistakes. And I will get into that probably later on. But right now, I am talking about a group that I find has a whole lot of troubles with life. And those are the late diagnosed ADHDers, the folks who've had it their whole life, but only recently diagnosed when they're, and late diagnosis, if you're in your 30s or late 20s even, that's late, because you've already done, the education part of life, and you're out there trying to establish a career and maybe a family and all those sorts of things. And if you don't know till then what's causing all the problems you have, because ADHD is not the same as being unintelligent or crazy or a character behavior disorder. It's ADHD. It means your brain works different from the brain of a neurotypical person. And that means your brain is not exactly, or let's just say that society, particularly schools, are not designed for ADHD brains. They're designed for neurotypical brains. The kids who can sit quietly for extended periods of time and don't have any problems or very minimal problems with getting bored, with all that other stuff. ADHD is frequently treated as a behavior disorder, and it's not. It is a neurological condition characterized by lowered levels of dopamine and serotonin in the brain, which makes it harder to pay attention and harder to find things that are satisfying and so on. Okay, that's the way it is, and it's hard on people. There are okay, a couple of things about ADHD. One, it is a disorder where you can have a little bit of it or you can have a whole bunch of it. Okay, if you have just a little bit of it, you can do the compensatory strategies, and that'll probably take care of things. If you have a whole bunch of it, you may try a whole bunch of different things, but you're probably going to end up needing to go on medication. Okay? And medication is not a terrible thing. It doesn't lead to abuse of hardcore drugs or anything like that. Matter of fact, the people who are most likely to have substance abuse issues are the people who were not treated. And people for some reason have a lot of problems with the whole medication thing. But frankly, for some people, that's the benefits are way outweigh any problems you can come up with. But right now, I want to talk today about how ADHD, undiagnosed and untreated, and even if you adapt, and some people with the less severe forms can adapt, can adjust, and just kind of look at it as an inconvenience. But if you've got the extreme level of ADHD, it's hard to function at all. Okay, we have, demands in our society for people doing what they're told when they're told to do it, and no problems, and not forgetting to do, all that stuff. Well, okay, and that affects a whole bunch of areas of one's life. And the biggie is that it affects one of the biggies is that it affects health. Okay, being healthy. I mean, okay, your genetics are helpful, so if you get good equipment, thank mom and dad. Um, but behaviors past a certain point, especially as you enter adulthood and middle age, um, behaviors are terribly important and more important than the genetic gift. Okay, and so what you get is a tendency. Okay, you figure if you haven't been treated, you don't know what you've got, you're going to probably try to do something to make yourself feel better. Okay, and very few people actually hit on the exercise. Okay, exercise is a wonderful thing in the sense that it increases dopamine and it makes you feel better. Matter of fact, a couple of the chief researchers and writers about ADHD, that's all they do. That's all they use is exercise. And one guy claims uh, he's good for a whole day if he gets about 45 minutes or so of aerobic exercise. That seems a little optimistic to me, but hey, he claims it. And he writes more books than I do. So ADHD will tend to you'll make impulsive choices when it's not treated, which may result, and you'll also trying to feel better. That may lead to some experimenting with different substances. Okay, there's a higher incidence of substance abuse among people who are ADHD but not diagnosed. Okay, and there are just a whole bunch of different reasons for that. One is, you're probably not exactly the most popular guy or gal in your school. Uh, your social needs are maybe met by some characters that maybe you don't want to bring home to mom and dad. And those are the same folks that are, well, they may be the same folks who are late diagnosed ADHDers or undiagnosed ADHDers, but substance abuse is rampant among this group. You will find a lot of people. And alcoholism is, you know, funny thing is, alcoholism is probably the one that hits people who are kind of trying to do the right thing, but then aren't completely alienated. The ones that are completely alienated will try anything, and it doesn't matter. They will be more likely to be drug abusers. Other things that are involved are poor diet. ADHDers tend to be in a hurry all the time. They tend to not, cooking healthy takes more time, and so the diet is not as good as it should be. Like I already said, there's no real motivation to exercise. I mean, I will not say ADHDers can't exercise because we've had a number of athletes in the high endurance kinds of sports like running and marathons and swimming they basically used ADHD to help. I mean, used exercise to help control their ADHD, and that's a good thing to do. It's helpful. How much you need to do is going to depend on how bad you got it. But so you've got impulsive people who are uncomfortable, alienated, isolated, who probably have a poor diet, probably don't exercise as much as they could. And that's going to lead, as you get older, to some health problems. And then, of course, the biggie is that impulsive, for the thrill of it, risky behavior thing. There are groups of people who do crazy things for fun and profit, honestly, but they pay for it. And they pay for it usually with humongous orthopedic injuries and not a few brain injuries. Uh, I haven't seen the statistics on this, but I'm guessing that all those ex-gamers have ADHD. I mean, why would you do that to yourself? And then you watch them being interviewed and talking about their injuries, and a tremendous number of orthopedic injuries, knees, backs, arms, legs, and then of course we have neurologic injuries, closed head injuries, brain trauma, whatever you want to call it. And that, if you're impulsive, I've grown up with it. I've seen it. Okay, my son, I got a call on my work. I was in a hospital setting at the time, but my wife calls and says, Brian broke his collarbone. Oh, that's nice. How did that happen? Well, he was on a skateboard and he had a friend who had a ski rope, and he tied the ski rope to the bicycle and pulled him around the neighborhood. And of course, he crashed and burned and, broke his collarbone. And that's not the end of it. There are bunches of other things like that happened. And ADHDers tend, especially the hyperactive types, tend to be the ones who take risks. Jump off the roof of the garage into a pile of leaves just to see if they can do it. And ski things that shouldn't be skied, and ride bicycles on places that shouldn't have bicycles. There are just a lot of orthopedic and injuries and some brain injuries that are, and of course a brain injury doesn't do a thing to help ADHD. You have more problems, and it worsens the problems you do have. The most closed head injuries are impact injuries, and most of the time it's your frontal lobes, which is the one that's executive function. That's the lobe that tells you whether or not you should do this, and how you stay focused on this task, and so on. It's the seat of your executive functioning, if you will. And most impact type injuries, are whether you're on a bicycle, motorcycle, playing football. Most of the injuries affect the frontal lobes more than anything else. And so what you do is you make your ADHD worse that way. And like I say, I've been on the parenting end of that sort of thing. And you just, you walk around with your stomach tight all the time. But it's not pleasant, shall we say. And, that's so between the substance abuse issues, the risk-taking issues, the alienation, isolation, all those sorts of things. ADHD is not fun and needs to be treated early and often. I'll get on my little bandwagon a little bit and say, also medication is not terrible. Okay, medication is not the enemy. And there are nowadays way more options than just Ritalin. Okay, oh, I don't take stimulant medication. Well, fine. There are a number of medications out there that are not stimulants that are used for ADHD. They're not honestly as effective, but they still help somewhat. So don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they used to say. I'm not sure when they used to say that, but it's not a terrible thing to be on medication because you have ADHD. It's the old saw is, well, if you had diabetes, you'd take insulin, wouldn't you? Or would you rather we cut off your leg? It's kind of the same thing, only it's a little more subtle. Okay. And, I'm not going to say that it's impossible for people to learn different strategies that kind of minimize the ADHD, the problems that you have because you have just a different neurodivergent way of thinking, shall we? And so you can still learn to compensate, and you should, okay? I think the big adjustments are that you're still okay. You're still a good person, okay? You tend to forget more, have a little more trouble staying focused, a little more trouble with your what's called working memory, or, remembering what people told you to do. So learn how to write it all down, and you'll do much better in life. Carry a notebook, a little one, one of the little skinny steno books with you at all times, and use it. Everybody says, hey, Donna, I want you to do this. If the boss, do this, this, and this, write it down, because you aren't going to remember it. You may remember one of them, but you aren't going to remember all three of them. And just recognize that. And don't try harder. Just learn to compensate for it. You're not stupid. But, like in the Kelly book, you're not lazy, crazy, or stupid. You have a unique brain that has some advantages in some areas, and you need to learn to take advantage of the advantages and learn how to compensate for the weaknesses, just like anything else. Okay, and so that's this week. I am Dr. Terry James Gingras. This is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, making the world safe for ADHDers. We need ADHDers. We need people who think outside the box, who solve problems in non-traditional ways. And if you're born outside the box, you're going to be good at that. Okay, and for those of you who are wondering what that white thing is in the background, that's one of the things that happens when you try to move your office into your home. All of a sudden, your board does not fit anywhere. But it's not a problem. Okay. Remember, my website is terrygingrassphd.com, and you can sign up for my list. You can sign up for my coaching program. And obviously, I specialize in ADHD, but I do other folks. I do folks who are living with ADHD, who are often overlooked when it comes to treatment. That's a good thing to talk about in the future. Okay, I've got a couple more sessions about late diagnosis, and then we'll get on to other topics. Okay, we will catch you next week.